Mighty men of old, men of renown, these mythologies. We have Horus. Horus is the hawk god. And I want you to consider this as you look at the idea of symbols. I believe the Bible explains what all these symbols are all about. In Mark chapter 4, Jesus taught a parable. And he used symbolic language in teaching this parable. He talked about a sower went out to sow seed, and some fell by the wayside, and the fowls of the air came and devoured it up. He then explains in Mark chapter 4, he also does it in two of the other Gospels, exactly what is meant by fowls of the air, because he actually says, these are the seed is the Word of God. So it's someone going out, handing out tracts or preaching to people or witnessing to people or whatever. And the wayside are people who don't care, and they have their life totally enveloped in sin. And then he says the devil comes down and gobbles up or eats up the word as soon as it's thrown out there. So he's telling you that fowls or flying winged birds are a picture of angels, evil angels, devils. So here we have Horus. I want you to look at him. He is half angel, half human. Where did this come from? It came from the idea that he is the son of Osiris and Isis. Osiris was the sun god. The sun mated with the earth, and we have the sons of God. And the Bible refers to angels as the heavenly luminaries. So we have the sun god, a heavenly luminary, an angel, mating with a human woman to produce Horus, who is pictured as half angel, half human being. And there's all these stories and mythologies about Horus and what he does and what he represents. We're going to look at some of those. But I want you to grasp this idea of the sun god. Now Horus now becomes sort of the reincarnation of Osiris, who is dead, and we'll look at him in a little bit. But Osiris and Horus both represent the sun deity or the solar deity. The Mayans had a sun god. The Mexicans had a sun god. The Indians had a sun god. The Romans, the Greeks, the Babylonians, the Chinese, the Japanese flag is basically in reference to the sun god. The Chinese emperor was the son of the sun god. He's supposed to be a representation of half god, half human. So we have these stories all over the earth, and all these kings reigning over mankind. The emperor of Japan is the sun god. Even in India, you see this here, the sun god, who has these horses and chariots and superpowers and all of this stuff, and all these, the Bhagavad Gita, which I have a copy of. I've never read it, but from what I understand, it talks about the exploits of these gods and of these devils and so on. So it in itself is sort of like a comic book of old. It's telling the story of the men of old, men of renown. Now here's something very, very interesting. This goes into the whole Superman mythos, this idea of a son of the gods. Jor-El, here's a graphic of him here. In the early renditions of the Superman comic books, Jor-El was always pictured with this emblem upon his chest. It's an emblem of the red sun of Krypton. Jor-El, now should follow me here. Jor-El represents a god, a sun god. That's who he represents. So his son would be an offspring of the sun god, just like Horus was. All right, so keep going with me on this one. The Bible actually describes the religion of the solar deity. Here the Mayans, the Aztecs, the Greeks, the Romans, the Indians, they all had this same idea of the sun god, is that the sun god rose from the depths. He ascends and he's carried on a chariot through the sky, and he reigns over all the world. And then he is smitten somehow, and he is cast down, and he dies. And so that's the sun going down over the west. He falls into the ocean, because beyond the landmass that people could see, they knew there was an ocean over there. So he falls into the ocean, And he goes through the lower parts of the earth into hell, into Hades, the pit, or whatever they called it. And then he is resurrected again the next morning. Let me show you what that looks like in the Scriptures. Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? He was an angel of light. You know the word Lucifer means bearer of light? That's what Satan is. He is an angel, a bearer, a messenger of light. The King James Bible got it right. That's what his name is. Messenger of light, Lucifer. Son of the morning. How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. Now watch this. Okay? Number one, here's what Lucifer does. I will ascend into heaven. That's 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. in the midsummer. 6 o'clock in the morning, the sun comes up and says, I will ascend into heaven. Number two, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. So what Lucifer is saying is, I'm going to be more brighter and my glory is going to outshine the stars. So 4 o'clock in the morning, all you see is stars. 6 o'clock in the morning, as the sun comes up, those stars go away. He is exalting his throne above the stars in heaven. Now you can't see the stars anymore. Then he says, I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. Did you know that every day the sun rises in the east and sets in the west? Every day. But every year, the sun, because of the turning of the earth and the rotation around the sun, whatever, the sun goes from the south and it rises up to the north at the, let's see, which one is it? The summer solstice. He's rising to the north, and then at the winter solstice, he's set back down again in the south. I will ascend also above, also. Not only am I going to rise this way, I'm going to rise this way, into the north, into the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. So we say at noon every day, between 6 a.m. 6 p.m., at midday, the sun is at its highest point. He is exalting himself like the Most High. Yet thou shalt be brought down, because after he's exalted up here, what happens? Thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. So, Jor-El ends up being Lucifer, and the superhero based upon him is the son of Satan. Jor-El gives birth to Kal-El. There's more to that I'm going to show you here in a little bit. The guys who invented these characters, they knew something, or they were inspired to do this, and I think both is true. Oddly enough, we have a superhero by the name of Osiris. Ammon, yes, Adrian, and more. The wisdom of Zehuti, the courage of Mehen. I am truly your brother, Isis. I am Osiris, even though I am not sure what that means. See, we have a superhero by the name of Osiris. Now, his human name, and we saw it here, Ammon Tomaz. Where did that come from? Ammon means is the Egyptian god. I think it's Ra, the sun god. But Tomaz, where did that come from? It came from the story of the dying god Tammuz. Tammuz is Bacchus or Adonis or Apollo or even the sun god who is smitten and he is dying. He dies and he awaits resurrection. They worshipped Ammon Tomaz or Tammuz. They worshipped him in the book of Ezekiel, and God said it was an abomination. Ezekiel 8:13, he said also unto me, turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations that they do. Then he brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house, which was toward the north, and behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz. They're weeping for the dying God who is awaiting resurrection. That's who Osiris, Horus is. That's who the Antichrist is. He has a head wound. He's in the pit. He is awaiting his resurrection. These comic book characters are nothing more than prefigurings and telling the story of the coming of the Antichrist. One of the notable features about Horus is what's called the eye of Horus, the all-seeing eye. You see, Horus, for some reason, has got an eyeball missing. And he's had his eye out, and now he has with this one eye, he can see greater than any of the other gods or any of the people. It's called illumination. People want to have the eye of Horus opened up in them so they can see into the spiritual realm and so on. Here's where that came from. Zechariah chapter 11 verse 17. Woe to the idol, notice idol, shepherd that leaveth the flock. The sword shall be upon his arm and upon his right eye. His arm shall be clean dried up, and his right eye shall be utterly darkened. His right eye darkened, taken out. So when you hear stories of Cyclops, it's a representation of those gods who have had one eye darkened, and yet the other eye is an eye of illumination. It is what people are seeking after. Notice in this graphic up here that it's the all-seeing eye of Horus that is undertaking or favoring the undertaking of a new world order. It sits atop the pyramid. In other words, this is the Antichrist. And all of these comic books are drawing people to the idea of the coming superhero God who's going to save mankind. They have comic book conventions all over the country. Now, when I was growing up, comic books were for kids. And you bought old comic books at yard sales. You bought new comic books if you had the money at Walmart or wherever it is your mom took you shopping. I didn't know any kids that actually had a subscription to these things. They just, when they got money, they got comic books, and we treated them like dirt. All right, we put them in. I had a big metal box I stored all mine in. Didn't take very good care of them, but now, I mean, these things are like huge. It's not just geeks anymore that read comic books. They have comic book conventions called the Comic Con. Isn't that amazing? That's a catchy name, isn't it? The Comic Con. Here's their logo. It's Horus's eye of illumination. It's the same one that's on here. It's everywhere. It's the eye of illumination. They're trying to illuminate people and teach them these stories so that when they see the reality, or he is going to be the desire. Just like Jesus was the desire of the nations, this Antichrist is going to be the lustful desire of the people of mankind. They want to be like Superman, Hawkman, so on. Going back to Osiris, remember that Horus is the son of Osiris, the sun god, and he is the son of a human woman. There is a Masonic symbol, a Masonic device called the Pythagorean triangle. It was named after Pythagoras, P-Y-T-H. He gets his name from the python. Pythagoras was this learned sage who had the illumination of the serpent in him. That's why they called him Pythagoras. He's the one that devised the idea of how to find the third angle of any kind of a triangle. And there's a formula. It's called a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So if you know the length of line A and the length of line B, and you square those two,